सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Okay, so any questions, clarifications on what we have done up to now? Or is it all clear?
Swamiji?
Yeah?
So here the Sureshwaracharya is using Samanaska and Amanaska terminology.
Yeah.
Is it his own terminology or is it there in some Yoga Upanishad or anything?
Yeah, some of the Yoga also mentions that.
In Upanishad,
Yeah.
in Yoga Upanishad.
See, it's simple. Samanaska is like saying Savikalpa.
Okay.
Okay? Amanaska is saying Nirvikalpa. That's only, there is a very similar to that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, sometimes a different term is used, that is all.
Okay.
Where the mind is involved and when the mind is resolved into the self. So, that is only difference there. So, normally Savikalpa, Nirvikalpa is used. Here is using Samanaska, Amanaska. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. Therefore, there is no other difference. And therefore, of course, here if you notice is Amanaska is Ishvara Swarupa. And then he had also said that yoga here, this is why all base all my talks on yoga on this. Many Vedanta texts use yoga as a preparation for Vedanta. Because without Adhikaritvam, you are not going to gain the knowledge anyway. So how do you gain Adhikaritvam? Various ways. So at a certain time in history, this became the most popular one, the practice of yoga. In fact, throughout, the practice of yoga became a very popular way in those days to get the mind ready. I know nowadays I have seen some yoga teachers getting upset when I say that yoga is preparation for Vedanta. They think, no, yoga is supreme, even the Upanishad that mentions. We all know what is what. Okay? We all know what is what in the whole thing. Now, this problem comes up because they tried to take out yoga, disconnect it from Vedanta, connect it up with Sankhya and make it a separate system by itself. This is where all the problems came up. Now, the initial thing about separating it out from Vedanta and the Upanishads and connecting it up with Sankhya had a purpose. Because the tendency among unawareful students is when you recognize everything is mithya, then you will say, why take care of the mind, etc. It's all mithya anyway. They are not really understood what is mithya. But because they have heard that word and there is some familiarity with it, mind is mithya, why do anything about it? Why? Because it's easy. Go to a teacher and sunke jao, bas, ho gaya kaam. You don't have to do anything. Forgetting that responsibility of Adhikaritvam lies with the student, not with the teacher. The teacher can give you a helping hand. Yes, he can guide, but you have to take care of your mind. Yeah. But to duck that responsibility, they will hide under the mithyatvam. This must have been a problem even in olden days. Because Manda Madhyama Adhikaris are always there. Manda Adhikaris are always there. They are the people who look at it like this. Out of tamas, out of laziness. Or unawarefulness. So, to compensate for that, they said, okay, don't teach them about Mithyatvam, etc. in the beginning. Connect it with Sankhya, Purusha and Prakriti. Therefore, at least they will learn to focus on the Purusha and learn to focus on resolving the mind into the self, etc. That practice will give them a better understanding, a better preparation of the mind. Therefore, their understanding will grow. And once they are ready, we will teach them Vedanta. This was what they thought. The flip side, any solution also has an inherent problem. Today's solutions are tomorrow's problems. Therefore, the problem that came up was that people started developing it as a separate system, independent of Vedanta. That's why if you listen to popular yogis, etc., including Sadhguru, Jagi Vasudev and all, they have no clue about what Vedanta is about. They are only talking from the level of Samadhi Yoga. They have no clue. In fact, in one of the videos I heard him say that I never prayed, I don't believe in prayer, because in prayer you are telling God what to do. I have not seen a more uninformed statement than that. Prayer is an appeal, a request, a glorification, this thing. It is not telling God what to do. So this type of wrong information is dangerous. Okay? Though he speaks a lot of great stuff. Okay? Therefore those things you can listen to it, but be a discerning listener if you are listening to him. Okay. That apart, coming back to our topic, okay? In the next few verses, he is presenting how yoga becomes a preparation. Nowadays, of course, when people go for a yoga class, all they are focused on is on asanas and little bit on pranayama. Nothing more than that. But yoga starts with yama niyamas. That's where you start is. Because without a value base, what are you talking about? Remember, it's a preparation for moksha. Yoga is a preparation for moksha. Preparation for Atma Jnana. If yoga has to be a preparation for Atma Jnana, it's a value based study. Dharma is the basis. Therefore, values become the basis. Yama niyama becomes important. If it was just weight loss, then you can do it without all that. Because weight loss, you can do a million different things anyway. There are more effective ways of doing it also. More effective ways of doing it. Yoga, the process is slow, but it's a good process because you're taking care of organ health before you start losing weight, etc. Therefore, it's a good process. It may be a little slow process, but it's effective, it's lasting. But that is not the aim of yoga. That's a fringe benefit of yoga. Health actually is a fringe benefit of yoga. Whereas nowadays most people do yoga for health benefits. Health is a fringe benefit. Adhikaritva, here, getting your mind set for moksha, that is the main thing. Therefore, if you are following yoga in that way, health will automatically happen. Why can it not happen? Fringe benefit. That is why among students of Vedanta, etc., yoga became popular. Why? Adhikaritvam is also gained. Health is automatically gained. And it is a system of exercise which you can do when you are having limited food. In our ashrams, etc., food were always limited. Nowadays, of course, is luxurious, that's a different thing. But if you go to most ashrams, limited food. Therefore, you can't do weightlifting and things like that when you are staying in an ashram and learning Vedanta, because that requires a lot of calories, a lot of proteins, etc. Your diet doesn't have that. Nor do you need your bulging muscles. They are all show muscles, good for looking good on the screen. Commando, you show Arnold Schwarzenegger with the bulging muscles. In real life, you won't be able to function as a commando. Why? Too much of weight to lug around. Many bodybuilders have tried the marine workout and failed miserably at it. Why? Because their muscles are show muscles. You don't need muscles like that. You need what is known in an ashram setup, you need what is known as functional fitness. Health and fit enough to do whatever you have to do. including being able to get up in the early morning and meditate, etc. Do with 5-6 hours of sleep. You need to do things like that, which yoga will give you. As a form of exercise, yoga is beneficial for that. Therefore, for students of Vedanta staying in an ashram, etc., yoga became a good system because they gain both adhikaritum as well as health, because your internal organs are kept functional. That's more important than your external muscles. Muscle also is there. If you do some of the strength gaining exercises in yoga and the asanas, you will gain enough strength also for your function. Anyway, you are not going to lift 50 kilos and walk around. You are not going to be a coolie or a porter in a railway station anyway. So what is the need for carrying 50 kilos and walking around? You need to go shopping for the ashram, carry 20-30 kilos and come. That much you'll be able to do. That's enough. That's enough. Okay. Yeah. So that functional fitness was taken care of, adhikaritum was taken care of. Therefore, it always became a value-based study. Yama niyama became important. Anyone remembers what the yama niyama in yoga is? The yama especially? Yoga teachers here remember that?
Yes, Swami.
Yeah, what is that?
Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha.
Okay, 5 of them, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you look at it here, that 5 is elaborated a little bit, so that for better understanding, those 5 yamas mentioned in the Yoga Sutras are elaborated here. Let us look at that. Mana prasadaha santoshaha maunam indriya nigraha daya dakshinyam astikyam arjavam mardavam kshama bhava shuddhi ahimsa cha brahmacharyam smrutirdhatihi ityevam adayo anye cha manas sadhyaha yamasmritaha. These and among others, there are others also, he says, that are called as yamaha. Because yamaha is in a form of restraint, of control. Okay? Therefore, he says, first thing important is mana prasada, a cheerful mind. A cheerful mind. Don't always be going about, cribbing about everything that is there. Everything you crib about. I see now, my God, because there is some time, etc., and I get these alerts, I sometimes see what's happening in the social media. Cribbing against the government, cribbing against this, cribbing against that, just crib. You are under lockdown, Baba. Now is the time to work on yourself. Do whatever work is there. Take care of household. Work on yourself, your health, your mental health. Work on that. These people are just putting up cribbing posts. Bad. No. Mana prasadam. Cheerfulness. Yeah, you see something, of course, human life is never perfect. No government is perfect. No society is perfect. If you see something wrong and you can do something to help, please do so. Now everyone is only building awareness. Why? To build more awareness. Why? To build more awareness. Therefore, a lot of negativity goes about. That's all that is happening in society. No. Do what you can. Have mana prasada, a cheerfulness. Even if you see something wrong and you are taking actions to correct it, cheerfully go about correcting it. Of course, there are a lot of things. Otherwise, you will end up frustrated. Because as a student of Vedanta, you are a sensitive, caring being. You care for people. And when you care for people, you are willing to do something. You can't stand injustice. Then do something about it. Now, why are you just cribbing? Why are you just cribbing? It doesn't help. Have a cheerful mind. To consciously cultivate a certain cheerfulness, a certain positivity without missing out on the reality of situations. See, I am not asking you all to be an optimist here. Sureshwara is not doing that. The optimist and the pessimist both have one problem. they miss the reality. So be a realist, objective, and be cheerful at the same time. It is not glass is half full or half empty. There is a glass, there is some milk in it. What can I do with it? Simple as that. There is some milk, na? I'm cheerful about that. Yeah. Realist with a positivity about yourself. Therefore, that positivity is important because we always look for nice, peaceful surroundings so that I feel nice in that, with amidst nature, etc. I feel very peaceful and nice. But believe me, it is not the environment that dictates terms to you. It is your own mind. You are carrying your environment right here inside. I know someone who was caught up in a very beautiful farm during the lockdown. Wow, what a nice place to be caught up. But what are they doing there? Cribbing. I mean, we are caught up in a flat, we can't go anywhere. You are in a farm where you can walk around, do things, be with nature. A lot of trees are there, this is there, everything is there. Private farm. What better place to be for a lockdown? But you're sitting down and cribbing there. Cribbing against the government, cribbing against this, cribbing, coin. Where is Manaprasada? The environment is great, but believe me, it's like taking a room with a view, and after some time, the view becomes commonplace. It happens to all of us. Many of you have been to our ashram in Rishikesh. When I stayed there, it was even more beautiful. Why? Because so much of crowds were not there. The slums outside were not there. A very beautiful, isolated place. With the river and the mountains, and it was beautiful. That's beautiful. But we are seeing that every day. We are busy with our studies, this, that, etc. And in the evening you sit down and enjoy the Ganges for some time before the Arati starts in the temple. Yes. But for us it is common. Why? I stayed there for 6-7 years. What do you expect it to become common or not? Then some visitor would land up. Oh, how beautiful, that thing, I want to go for a dip in the Ganga. Then you look at it and say, hi, yaar, it is beautiful. When did you last have a dip in the Ganga? 10 days back. Okay, you better go and have it. It has become commonplace. Therefore, it is not the environment that makes you fine. If you are fine here, if you are cheerful here, you will be cheerful anywhere. In the midst of a city, you can be cheerful. Because you carry your environment inside. You cannot have too much of control on the external environment. If you have small kids at home, you can't even have control over the internal environment in your home. This you can always have. Therefore, Karma Yoga, Buddhi, etc. will give you that cheerfulness. A student of Vedanta is expected to be cheerful, not a cribber. Not a cribber. Crib about everything. No, but there is so much of injustice. Then do something about it. If you are really feeling so strongly about a problem that you see in the society, stop cribbing and start doing. I said that to a friend of mine. He got upset and now he doesn't contact me. What to do? His choice. His choice. Stop cribbing, do. If you're really feeling there is a problem, do something about it. I am lockdown, I can't do. Support others who are doing. Take out your checkbook. I don't have my salary is stopped, all these. Keep quiet. Pray. Be cheerful. That much you can always do. By going and cribbing about it and putting all these negative posts on the social media, you are not doing any service to anyone. You are only making the problem worse. Spreading negativity around. Therefore, cheerfulness inside. This media and all we didn't have to talk about before because it's not there. It is not there. But here, because it is there, I am constrained to make a point about it. Okay? What is important is mana prasadaha. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanihi yasu upajayate. Prasanna chetasahi buddhihi paryavitishtate. Does this verse sound familiar?
Yes, Swamiji.
Where is it from?
Gita.
Yeah, it's from the
Gita.
good. Yeah. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanihi yasu. Prasanna chetasahi. Once your mind is cheerful, buddhihi paryavitishtate. Your mind is not going to run around like a headless chicken, because the mind is running around for a headless chicken, either driven by the pressure inside or searching for happiness. Your mind is cheerful. Mind is cheerful, happiness is manifesting there. The ananda that you are is manifesting there. Naturally, buddhi will remain. You don't have to look at to calm your mind. Your mind will be calm because prasannaha, mind is calm. A cheerful mind is a mind that is quieter than a cribbing mind anyway. Therefore, mana prasadaha, first niyama, he says. And santoshaha, being happy. Santoshaha here is translated as contentment. It's not contentment. It is a contentment that comes with prasada buddhi. That type of contentment it is. Okay? That type of contentment. The absence of the cribbing mind, a cheerful mind. Mana prasada, santosha goes together. Yeah. Happy with what you have. You can work for more things, of course. Nothing wrong in working for more things. But be happy, accept things for what it is, and then do what you have to do. Santosha. Maunam. Very important. Very important. Maunam. Why? Because we are always in society. Jabber. Either externally talking or internally my mind chatter is going on. I am talking to myself all the time. Fantasizing, arguing, criticizing, that goes on. Learn to stop that chatter. At least external chatter. Maunam. Yeah, important. Why? How are you going to become more self-awareful if all the time you are interacting? If all the time you are interacting with people or doing a lot of self-talk, what way are you going to become self-awareful? How are you going to recognize what is happening in your own mind? Whether it is knowledge or otherwise, how are you going to recognize that? All the time you are chattering about it. All the time. This reflects the value in the Gita called Vivikta Desha Sevitvam. Retiring to a quiet place, be quiet by yourself. Oh no, it's important. Yeah. Maunam doesn't mean, okay, I don't interact with some people, therefore I'll keep quiet, but I'll start writing and communicating with people. I'll start messaging and communicating with people. No, I don't do that, I'll keep watching the TV. No. Maunam, just be with yourself for some time. You'll be surprised at what you understand about yourself. Therefore, Maunam is good thing to practice sometimes. Indriya Nigraha. Okay. Gaining some mastery over your sense organs. In lockdown, very important. Otherwise, everyone will put on weight. By boredom eating, na? Yeah. You know which one of the companies which is doing very well is a Bombay based company? Do you know which one? Come on, you guys are in your business and working world, you all should know more than me. Which is one company that has had a very good sale and doing very well? Parle biscuits. People are hogging biscuits during the lockdown. Why? Boredom eating. Boredom eating. When you're bored, you're going to go and eat some biscuits or all that farzan that you kept inside your house. You're not thinking of going and doing, chalo, let me practice some yogasanas. You're not going to do that. You're going to go and eat. You're going to put on the TV. And when you're putting on the TV, you're getting a little bit bored with that. Therefore, you'll go and look for a snack. TV and snacks go together. For me, TV and exercising go together. 50 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, 150 push-ups, 150 crunches. थोड़ा boredom है. 100 squats. So put on the TV and do all that thing. But people don't do that. They put on the TV and snack. Why? Indriya Nigraha is not there. People crib. Samji, no gym. I'm putting on weight. No mastery. That's all it means. What has gym life taught you? Going to a gym should teach you about how to master yourself. How to master yourself. Instead of that, what are you doing? You're locked down. Yeah, locked down. No workout, no. Discipline that body. Learn to push yourself. Someone has not muted their mic. Please mute that mic. So master your body. Master that. Learn to say no to those things. Learn to push yourself and do things which you don't like doing. Anyway, the cook is not coming, na? So problems. So I know this couple, they are there in this class also. One of them is there in the class. They decided, okay, anyway, making 3 meals a day is too much. So we will go on 2 meals a day. Husband and wife both lost weight. Husband needed to, wife didn't need to. Both lost weight. Intermittent fasting became natural. Indriya Nigraha. Indriya Nigraha. Yeah. Sense organ. Learn to master your sense organs. Why is it important? Because otherwise you cannot see you are independent of the body and sense organs. Because you are giving in to the demands of the body and the sense organs all the time. You cannot see yourself as being independent of the body. You cannot see that. Okay. Neeta Ben and Satish Bhai, please check your environment sounds. Either control the environment or control your mic and mute it. Too much of racket with you from your areas. Okay. Therefore, Maunam Indriya Nigraha. Daya. Okay. To be kind with people. Compassion. Daya is compassion. Have compassion. Because all people cannot do everything. They will be what they are. So they are struggling with their minds. Like how you have struggled with yours. If you are not struggling right now, how you have struggled with yours, they are struggling with theirs. Therefore, in that context, have some compassion towards them. Have some compassion and do what's necessary. Have that compassion. Yeah. Can you all hear me? Okay. Have that compassion. Yeah. Like I need some compassion here because I asked 2 people to mute their mics. I can't mute it from here, but they are not muting it. What do I do? Compassion. Okay. They are not very aware of what is happening. They are not tech savvy. It was okay. We'll put up with some of those disturbances. Not a happy situation to be in, but okay, chalo, it's all right. Accept it. Compassion, daya. Okay. Dakshinyam. Okay. Dakshinyam. To be generous. Generosity. Generosity doesn't always come with big money. Generosity can be something small. No person is so small that you can't help somebody else. No one is that small. Yeah. You don't make big money, right? Fine. Can you not help your maid? Can you not help her son's education? Small things. Generosity to those who need it. Dakshinyam can always be there. To be generous. You can be generous with your time. You can be generous with your knowledge. You can be generous with your emotions. Be loving and caring to people who require that. Yeah. Therefore, that sense of generosity. Okay. Dakshinyam. Astikyam. Okay. Astikyam. Astikyam is what? Shastreshu, Guru Vakyeshu, Astikya Buddhi, Vishwasaha. To take it in trust. To have some trust in the Shastra and the teacher. Very important. Okay? Because teaching Vedanta is not an easy job. It involves not only pointing out the truth, but pointing out the lacuna in people's adhikaritva. So sometimes the teacher may be constrained or will have to, as part of his duty to the student, point out certain things. At that time the student has a choice to accept, learn and grow, or to get upset and walk away. If you have astikyam, you will accept, learn and grow. If you don't have astikyam, you will get upset and walk away. Or you will get upset, stay in the class but sulk. Very passive. And keep saying, my guru is not fair to me. He is partial to others. How much are you going to learn if this is what your opinion of the teacher is? So someone whom I knew found a good solution. When the teacher confronts him like that, because see, in the beginning, when you come to a teacher, the teacher is not going to say anything problematic. Why? Because a rapport, some trust, rapport, etc. has to be built up. Only then you can go say something. Only then you have a right to say something. Without building up some rapport and trust, you don't have the right to say anything. So, this guy would go to a teacher, go and say something. And after some time, will point out, hey, this is not this thing. The guy would get upset and leave that teacher. I was the 9th teacher he came to. And then after some time, and he thought I was the best teacher he had ever met until then. So at that time itself, I warned him, be careful. You have left 8 teachers and come. Some of those teachers I knew, I can accept that there is a problem there. Some of them are very good people. I said, if you have had problems with these people, chances are good that you can have problems with me as well. Therefore, take it easy. Take it easy. And true enough, after some time he left me. He is on his 13th teacher right now. When is he ever going to learn and grow? I feel sorry for that guy. All because the trust he couldn't have. He chose to get upset rather than learn and grow. Yeah. Astikyam will prevent that. Some Shraddha in the Shastra and the Guru will prevent that from happening. So that much, just that much is enough, not more than that. Yeah. Not more than that. Somebody came and told me, Swamiji, you are like a god. I said, no, I am human very much. I am not God. I am God as Tattvamasi. Aham Brahmasmi, yes, but not in my functioning. Why? Because that is too much of Shraddha. You are putting me on a pedestal. Once you put me on a pedestal, you won't do anything about yourself. Why? He is great, I am useless. He can do all those things, I don't have to do anything. No. The Astikyam is not meant to put the Guru on a pedestal. Astikyam is enough so that you can learn and grow. That is the focus. That is the focus. Yeah. If you don't have Astikyam, it will be like that case of that student who came to a camp of mine. He wanted to be a student. Came to a camp of mine. And then when I said yoga was a preparation, I repeated it a couple of times. He got upset and he wanted to walk away. Yeah. He went and kept cribbing about it to the whole camp. I know I can't mute them from here. From my phone, I am not being able to mute them. It's up to them to mute. I am telling you the names Satish Bhai and Neeta. Please mute your mics. Satish Bhai and Neeta Ben. Please mute your mics. It's becoming a disturbance for others, they can't hear. I don't like to point out, but here I had to point it out. I have the compassion not to point out, but there's a problem that can happen. I hope they have the Astikyam to accept it and learn. I know both of them, they have that. They are not very tech savvy, so you can understand that it's happening. Okay. But I hope they can learn and handle it. I think they have, because there is no disturbance anymore. Thank you. It is nice of you to take it positive. Okay. Therefore, this is what Astikyam is about. We have covered it all earlier, therefore I am not going to explain beyond a point. Little explanation is good so that you will remember it. Arjavam, straightforwardness. Meaning, there is an alignment, integrity between your thinking, your words and your action. Your thoughts, emotions, words and action are aligned. That alignment is Arjavam. Why is it necessary? It is necessary because what the mind knows should be able to flow into the heart and into your life. Therefore, when your mind, because of the strength of the teaching, understands Aham Brahmasmi, does it flow into your heart and you say, yes, that is true, you can accept it? Does it reflect in your life of freedom? Very often it doesn't, because we have created splits within ourselves because of lack of Arjavam. We think one thing, we say something else, we do something else. I am not saying everything you think you should say. I think this character is an idiot, I will go and tell him. Not necessary. Keep it to yourself. But whatever you say should be in harmony with your thought. And whatever you do should be aligned with your words. You should be able to walk your talk. Walk your talk. That is Arjava. Straightforwardness. If you do that, there is a certain integrity, a certain alignment in your personality. So when you know the truth, it will flow through into your life very well, without any problems. Therefore, Arjavam helps that. But Arjavam means there should be Mardavam also. What is Mardavam? A certain softness about your personality, kindness. Okay? You are not harsh with people. Just because you are straightforward and honest doesn't mean you have to be harsh with people. You don't have to be a porcupine that people are afraid to come near you. Have a certain kindness to them. Accept them for their faults, accept them for what they are. Yeah, why not? All of us are struggling with our minds. Therefore, to be gentle, kind, to be nurturing, to be caring. There are times when you have to be strict. Of course, there will be times when you have to be strict. I know. See, people come and give me all sorts of compliments at all sorts of times. I take it generally with a pinch of salt. My attitude. What to do? That is me. But there was one compliment that this young MBA student gave it, which I really liked. So I used to teach this MBA classes in Indian ethos and management. Basically, their self-development issues, which is not normally taught in an MBA college, is only taught as an academic topic. It is not taught in terms of their own growth. So I was doing that. This college was visionary enough to do something like that. So at the end of that course, this girl tells me, Swamiji has been our strictest and our kindest teacher. Strict because he made us perform. When he asked us to do things, he made sure that we would perform and really meet the standards he set. Kindness because he was available for us day and night. He accepted us with all our faults and helped us. Even the night I could call him up if I was having an emotional issue or a problem I couldn't handle. That is what all of us have to be. Yeah, when you have to be strict to perform, you have to be able to do something. But can you accept people with kindness? That's called Mardam, gentleness. Being kind, gentle, available for people. So people are not afraid to approach you for something. Mardavam. Shama, forbearance. Yeah. Shama, a sense of forbearance, acceptance of people for what they are. We have seen this n number of times. Okay. Bhava Shuddhi. Bhava Shuddhi. Now, what is Bhava Shuddhi? Okay. Purity in terms of your intentions. When you're interacting with people, are you clear or are you manipulating? What are your intentions? When you take part, for example, in helping the poor, what are your intentions? In helping them or getting name and fame for yourself? What is your intention? Name and fame may happen, may not happen. That's a different thing. Purity in terms of clear intentions. You are clear to yourself and others. Your intentions are very clear. It also implies you are taken care of that nonsense inside. What nonsense inside? Emotional baggage. Because bhava, hurt, pain, guilt, anger, etc. You are dealt with it. You are dealt with it. It's a psychological process. Whatever psychological process necessary, you do it and take care of it. That is generally done one-on-one with a guru or a counselor or someone. Do that. Bhava samshuddhi. Because what is inside you have to take care of. Yeah. It has been my good fortune to help people with this, with many of my students with this, and I see them growing as such wonderful human beings because of that. Bhava samshuddhi. Ahimsa. Not hurting people and things. Deliberately, I will not harm people or animal life as well, as far as possible. I will not harm. Ahimsa. Because why should you harm? I mean, this is the basis on which the whole dharma is based upon. I want to live happily. You want to live happily. I don't expect you to do something to damage my life and happiness. Therefore, I will not do the same to you. Therefore, that ahimsa, basic, not hurting each other, becomes the basis of dharma. That's why it's called ahimsa paramo dharma. Why should I hurt you or damage you? Physically, emotionally, verbally? Why? Ahimsa. Of course, ahimsa will be different level at different beings. Ahimsa paramo dharma, himsaha dharmo tathaiva cha. For the sake of dharma, himsa is also accepted. Last resort, but is accepted. Yeah. Therefore, that when you are dealing with people, etc., you will not hurt them. Your intention is never to hurt anybody in life. Deliberately, you will not hurt. You will not say words to hurt. You, even as a teacher, when you are saying something, you are saying it for them to grow, not to hurt. Therefore, you will try to make that, you will say it in a manner that cannot hurt. Unless the character doesn't get it, then you may say it a little bit tougher. Ahimsa paramo dharma. This ahimsa towards human beings, we also extend it to animal life. Extension. Animal life was an extension. Like many people think I don't like dogs, for example. Why? I don't cuddle and play with them and all that thing, I don't do. But I grew up, every year I would spend a lot of time in my ancestral home, which had a lot of farms, a lot of dogs around, because we needed guard dogs. It was a big farmhouse, ancestral home, madham. And the madham was the seat, the family seat was there. Therefore, big house. Therefore, you needed guard dogs. I was friendly with all of them. But guard dogs don't come and slobber over you. They are meant for that. Guard dogs, you don't take a dog and put it in your bed in the name of love for animals. Okay? Partly that's responsible for a lot of allergies and illnesses. The Wuhan market, that's an extreme. But this also one has to be careful about. A pet is not supposed to, in my opinion, share your bed. If you want to share it, that's your choice. Extra love you have, that's your choice. Okay? We had cows as well. At any time there were 3-4 cows. All of them used to interact well. One of my grand uncles had a huge elephant. I used to love interacting with that elephant. We love animals, ahimsa. Feed them, take care of them, nurture them, structure them. But don't pamper them so much that they are useless. They can't live in the wild anymore after that. That is himsa in some ways. Because you are making them useless to survive. And if a tragedy happens and they are out on the road, they can't survive after that. Your love has made them useless. That is not care. Would you like to make your child grow up in a manner that he cannot deal with the world? Would you like that? That your child is incapable of dealing with the world. Do you want to grow up your child like that? Or do you want to prepare him for the world? Then why are you making your dog incapable of dealing with the world? Think about it, okay? Ahimsa is an extension. Similarly, vegetarianism was an extension. Like somebody came and said, Swamiji, I love animals. Somebody came and told me, Swamiji, I love animals. But I am a non-vegetarian. So you love animals and you will eat them. Huh? Why don't you chop up your dog and eat it? How can I do that? But you can chop up something that you don't see and you can do that. No. Ahimsa is an extension to animal kingdom is vegetarianism. You can argue medically which is better, this, that, etc. You can say. Yeah, there is enough supporting evidence for vegetarianism to an extent. But don't make it absolute. Don't make it absolute. But if you are extending ahimsa, then vegetarianism is a part of the game. If you want to choose it. I am not insisting on that. Okay? Yeah. Because you are agitating to save the tiger, to save the dogs from the street dogs, to save the tiger. But you can cut a goat and eat him. You can chop a chicken and eat. And the chicken that are reared in such unhygienic and such difficult circumstances. And of course you can kill a cow, okay? We used to revere cows because human beings in India, after mother's milk, you drank the cow's milk. Therefore, out of gratitude, you expressed your gratitude towards the cow. Because, like mother's milk you have drunk, you have drank the cow's milk, and you continue drinking it in your tea, coffee, curds. Even if you are drinking black tea, black coffee, you are taking curds, cow's milk. Therefore, right through life, for 10,000 years, we have been doing that. Therefore, we had a certain respect. Now we don't. That's a different thing. If you're protecting the tiger and the elephant, you're an animal activist. Or you're a dog lover. But cow, no, you can slaughter it. Wrapped up values of a modern society. Anyway, my idea is ahimsa. You choose how much you want to extend it to the animal kingdom. I will choose to extend it, therefore I choose to be a vegetarian. Out of ahimsa. As I said, I am not a great dog lover that I'll put the dog into my bed. I won't do that. Yeah. The dog will be in its place, I will be in my place, and we are both happy. The dog knows I respect it, I respect the dog, and we are fine. So all wildlife is that. Yeah, and after 2 months of holidays, when I used to come off, that elephant would sometimes shed tears. Why? Because he knows I will go and tell my goodbye to him. He would shed tears. Why? अभी नहीं देखने वाला एक साल के लिए. 1 year I'm going to see that. Yeah. So, ahimsa extension. You can love your animals, love your this, but also have a certain. It will become more and more necessary in today's world to keep a certain distance. I'm not fear mongering here. Okay, don't take in that. Not fear mongering, but have a certain perspective about it. Okay. Ahimsa, brahmacharyam, brahmaniyo charati iti brahmachari. One who moves on Brahma Marga is called a brahmachari. A spiritual life. One who leads a spiritual life. Therefore, automatically certain discipline, etc. comes in. That is called brahmacharya. In yoga, literally, when you are doing yoga, brahmacharya is often taken as abstinence from sex. Yeah. If you are going after the siddhis that yoga talk about, then you need to do that. Okay? Like certain siddhis, certain discipline, etc. Normally, brahmacharya, even if you are a practicing yogi, brahmacharya will mean a disciplined sex life. Not excessive. So, not excessive, and this is vague. How do you know what is excessive and not excessive? A young newly married couple may say every day. Someone 50s may say twice a week. Who is to decide? Therefore, if you are a practicing yogi and you want to do that, you know what is excess and not excess. After a sexual activity, you should not feel weak in your knees when you are getting up from bed to have a wash or to go for a cup of water or a drink. You should not feel wobbly on your knees. Then you know it's not excessive. So now you decide what is excessive for yourself or not. Okay? Therefore, a certain discipline with respect to my sexuality. Because I need to master my sexuality. I cannot be a victim of my sexuality. It should give me a pleasure and joy, not make me feel helpless, I can't do without it. So that is the aim. Therefore, to own up your sexuality and have the mastery over that sexuality itself. That's why brahmacharya was highlighted. Because there's a very fundamental urge in a human being. Therefore, mastery over that fundamental urge. Like how you gain mastery over the urge to eat through fasting, etc. So similarly, mastery over this urge also. Mastery over your need to drink by saying, no, this fast I will not drink water also. Therefore, the mastery was extended to all areas of life, including my natural urges. I wasn't mastery, that's all. Then, when you are going for certain siddhis and things like that, which as a student of Vedanta we are not interested in, then brahmacharya was even stricter. No sexual activity at all. That's meant because it is meant for those siddhis. Why, etc. There's a whole theory behind it. It comes in terms of your kundalini, your chakras, and all that thing. Out of context in this class. Somewhere else I can explain all that. But in today's class, it's a little bit out of context because we are talking about Vedanta, not about siddhis. Okay? Therefore, brahmacharya, this much is enough. Smritihi. Smriti is memory. Literally meaning. We are not talking about increasing your memory by all those memory based exercises. Those are good to do if you have a problem with your memory. Okay? Here when you say smriti, it means to be able to reflect on your learning, what you have learned, to be able to recall it and reflect about it, to be able to reflect on your life experiences and grow from that, because life's experiences are meant to teach you about what life is about. Nirvedamaya, to give you a sense of objectivity, and you will not gain that. You will never learn from life's lessons unless you have reflected upon it. Experience do not teach unless you really reflect and think about it. Yeah. Of course, some people get the wrong. Some people will get the wrong learning also out of those experiences. Yeah. So to be able to get that, okay.
Swamiji,
Yeah.
Can I request Sharda to please mute your mic, Sharda, please?
ओके
Okay.
ए
Thank you,
चिट्टू
Sharda.
ये कैसे म्यूट करते हैं
Shall I either call somebody to help you with that, or learn it before the next class. Okay.
म्यूट करना
Okay, smritihi. Therefore, to reflect on life's experiences, learn and grow. That can happen only if you reflect upon it. Experience by itself is dumb, it doesn't teach anything. And reflect on your own biases that you have, because your bias will make you interpret it in your way. Like the joke that I always tell you, I think many of you have heard it. I don't know how many of you remember it. There was this guy from Alcoholics Anonymous who was going about talking about the problems of drink, which is true. Drink can be a problem if it is not controlled. Therefore, he used to believe in experience-oriented learning. So he took a glass of water and a glass of whiskey. He put a worm into the glass of water, it was happily swimming around. Then he picked up the same worm and put it in the glass of whiskey, it dies. Then he asked the audience, "What do you learn from this?" One man put up his hand. Nice, ruddy-cheeked, red nose, etc. "Sir, if you drink whiskey, you will have no worms in your stomach." This is a learning he got out of that. Yeah. Because you have a bias towards whiskey, therefore your reflection of your life experience also will be guided by that bias. Yesterday I had a conversation with a young couple who comes to my class, and the man, he said something very beautiful. He said, "Swamiji, I am very objective. When my wife discusses issues with me, etc., I can become very objective. Only when it comes to my mother, I cannot become objective." Now look at this guy. He's a youngster, newly married. But he has had enough objectivity to recognize that when it comes to his mother, he is subjective. That he has a bias pro his mother. He feels his mother has suffered a lot in life, therefore he will always be supportive of her. That bias is a good bias to have, to be supportive of your mother, but not at the extent of costing your marriage or damaging your marriage. Therefore, he is objective enough to understand that I have a bias. That calls for a lot of reflection. Lot of reflection will come. Many of us, especially those of us who say we are liberals, have a lot of liberal fanatic bias. We are as bad as the right wing and the left wing. As bad as them. But we don't recognize it because we think we are very liberal and very open-minded and things like that. We have that bias. If there's a right-wing fanaticism, there's a left-wing fanaticism which comes up in terms of Maoism and Naxalite movement, etc. Urban Naxals included. And there is a liberal fanaticism which is intolerant about both the views, or rather, especially the right wing. Others, they are more accepting. Therefore, we have these biases. We are a product. We are as much as a product of the society as we are influencers in the society. More a product. Therefore, these biases will come into us. Therefore, to be able to reflect, smritihi means reflection, not just memory. To be able to see, understand what I have gone through in growing up in life and tackle these biases that may be there. Very important point. This is more elaborate than the niyama of yoga, okay? Because this is more meant for Vedanta. Some of the Yoga Upanishads mention some of them. Okay? Smritihi, dhritihi. To be a thinker, to have fortitude, not to be thrown off by problems, to be able to take problems in your stride. Problems, so what? Big deal. They make me stronger. That's it. To be able to carry on in spite of meeting obstacles in your way. A very healthy stubbornness, not the stubbornness because of which you will not learn to grow. Look at the Sattvika Dhriti that we had in the Gita. That Dhriti, because of which you will stick to your duty, responsibilities, to your goals, etc., in spite of all obstacles. That Dhriti we are talking about here. Ityevam adaya nyaha. And there are other qualities also. What are the other qualities anyone can say? What other qualities can be there? Whoever wants to say, please switch on your mic and say it. Now is the time to say.
Sadhana Chatushtaya, Shamadama.
All that comes in here also. Yes? Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Ahimsa, Kshantirarjavam. Remember all that 20 qualities in the Gita?
20 qualities.
Yeah. All of them also can come here.
20 qualities.
Yeah. All of them can come. So all these will make Yamaha. Okay. Then there is some niyamas also. But this is called Yama. Any questions or clarifications on what we have done up to now? The whole thing. Including Ahimsa, Dhriti, etc. All of them. If there are any, ask right now. All clear?
Swamiji.
Yeah?
Yes, Swami. Yes, Swamiji. Yes, Swami.
Clear? Okay. Good. Because, why I am saying is because these are subtler than what it looks. Okay. Some of them are quite tricky also. Okay. Like Dakshinyam, your generosity. Somebody asked me a simple question yesterday in the class. Swamiji, in this condition, can we help beggars? Dakshinyam, generosity, no? How do we deal with beggars? So what will you say about that? Come on guys, tell me, how will you deal with beggars? Dakshinyam. Beg your pardon? You will give them food, you are saying. Okay. You are saying to prevent it from being a profession, you will give them in kind, not in cash, right? Correct or not?
Yes, Swami.
So that will require everything. They'll also include rainy season is coming.
Yeah, maybe umbrella, maybe mask.
Masks, yes. Do they not deserve a protection? They also deserve protection. Or are you saying good riddance, let them get COVID and die? You can't say that. It's a life outside and done. Just because they make you uncomfortable, you cannot say that. Therefore, tricky. Can you see? It's not simple. Nay, begging is becoming a profession in Bombay, which is true. It is a profession in Bombay. But what to do? Today's life, there is even people willing to work, there is no work. Then what? And that's been the condition in India for quite some time. There is no social security. We are not developed enough as a country. After 500 years of looting the country, we are still building up again. 500 years, we are exploited country. London was built on the wealth taken away from India. India became the dumping ground because there was country. In spite of it, there is still so much of wealth in the country. So after independence, we wanted to build up again. But first 70 years we lost because of socialist policies. So only now we are starting to build up. So jobs are not available. And we are starting to build up, etc. After, I think, Narasimha Rao was the first person to do some little opening up, etc. After that, coronavirus thing is shrinking again. We'll pick up again. By the end of the financial year, we have picked up again. We have come back to what we were before the closed down, before the lockdown. But the fact remains that people won't have jobs. Therefore what? Think about it. It is not that simple. It is not a direct yes or no answer. It is not black and white. There are a billion shades of grey here. Black and white is easy to handle. Correct. Daily wages are also selling in some areas. Correct. Because daily wages, where is money from? I remember one of my students, wonderful person. Her dhobi felt free. She just gives her clothes for ironing. There's a washing machine at home where the clothes are washed in the washing machine. But her dhobi felt free to call her up and tell her, Maji, I need some help. I wouldn't have asked you, but we don't have even money for food now. Now what do you do? Of course she helped them. It's a wonderful girl. She helped them. Yeah. So there is no straight answer into this. The answer is help where you can. So like that in every value, there will always be the grey areas. Kshama, forbearance. How much will you put up with forbearance? If your forbearance is helping the other guy to become an idiot, stop. Maybe he deserves a whack, not your forbearance. Yeah. Especially when you are playing the role of a teacher. The teacher's kindness should help someone grow. Exactly like how a parent's kindness should help the children grow. Not the other way around. Not make the guy useless, idiot, pampering. That's called smothering. That's not called nurturing. You're supposed to nurture and structure. Not smother the kid. Kill the kid with your love. So I'm so kind to my students. You won't find that with me, okay? My teacher was a little bit like that. He was compassion incarnate. That is him, not me. Okay. Nobody else could be like it. And I have also told him sometimes, Swamiji, because of your compassion, sometimes I have to take a strong stand when you are getting things done. Yeah. So he used to laugh. He'll say, yeah, I could manage everything but my compassion. Sometimes I'm too compassionate. Therefore, there's always because remember, these are not absolute values. They are relative values. And therefore, you have to understand them in a relative sense. Cannot be black and white about it. It is always like that. Okay? So I want you to think about this, because I know this after all the Dakshinamurti, Sodam, Vishwam, Vishwadikari, Karanataya, etc. This is coming down to basics. But this refinement of these qualities will help your understanding of Vedanta and help that knowledge to flow into your life. Therefore, it's very, very important. Even if you're an advanced student of Vedanta, it's sometimes good to look into the basics again, and so that you can see where it is working, where it is not working, why of it, and how to take care of it. Okay? So please do a lot of smriti, reflection on what we have discussed today, and we'll see the niyamas and the asanas, etc. next class. Okay? Good place to stop. Om Tat Sat. I enjoyed being with all of you.